a hard act to follow. And it kind of shows that she was a social studies history teacher too, I think. Thank you, Keontae. I am not going to be talking very long. I'm looking forward to Haley's presentation, but I'm also really looking forward to the questions. And so I'm gonna try to be pretty brief. There's a lot that I would love to say, but part of what is so important about this event tonight, and I wanna just invite you all to take a really good look around the room. And this is a good place to be. This is what we need to do, and it's not fun. I know a lot of people's hearts are hurting right now. A lot of people's blood pressure is rising. Tears, anger, all that. It's hard. It's a hard history to come to terms with, and a lot of why we are repeating history. You know, we just went through the 50th anniversary of the civil rights movement around Selma, and now we're going to go into the 50th anniversary of that Black Power era, when a lot of good things were happening by Black leaders, but it got typecast in a certain way, and they were angry. And so part of why I'm here, and what I would like to invite especially the brave white people who are here to do, is to get a little bit more comfortable with your discomfort. It's okay, it's good. We need to do this. It's not easy, but we do have to come to terms with our past. And when we talk about reconciliation, you know, there's been a kind of an integrationist model that Kain was so eloquent in articulating, but it was challenged, and he even made some changes while he was still alive to that model. And my personal feeling is that we have a lot of repairing to do before we can reconcile. So looking at the history to help us understand what's going on now is pretty essential. We're not gonna get there any other way. When Trayvon Martin's killer, George Zimmerman, was acquitted, I was out in Oakland for a conference, and there were riots out there. But I was also wondering what was going on in Pensacola, and there was a demonstration that happened, and the high school students are the ones who organized it, right? Remember what they were saying? We are Trayvon Martin. So I knew Keontae from a few different things around town, and when we knew that the officer who was involved in Michael Brown's death, they were going to make a statement, we started asking each other, what are we going to do? And these two ladies and some other really amazing young people, all of them African American, have done some tremendous things in this city. And I feel honored to be able to support them and try to open our church space for events that they have not been able to hold in other places, including African American churches, I believe.
You're right.
Right? Yep. So one thing that's helpful is that, you know, we white people, we're not all in the same place. We come from really different experiences, right? Black people are the same too. They don't all see things the same way, and their experiences are different. But there's so many tremendous gifts of leadership that we have in our own community. And the idea that Pensacola has this amazing history of a very successful and vibrant African American community, I bet there are not very many young people going to our schools right now who know anything about that. And it's not African American history, it's American history. So that's part of the repairing. We have to claim that. I want to use one example from a whole laundry list of examples that we could give to try to help the white people who have been courageous to show up in the room this evening to develop some empathy. And I think, Canty, you helped a lot. Knowing the facts and history helps. But I'm going to try to ask you to feel something, and it's difficult, but it might help you start seeing things in a different way. When Tamir Rice was playing in a park in Cleveland with his sister with a toy gun, and the police came because they got a call, and the person who called said, "I'm not sure if it's a real weapon or not." And there's some question as to whether those officers knew what the caller actually said. But regardless of that, and probably many of you have seen this, they rushed onto the scene and there was no interaction. They killed a 12-year-old boy in the park playing with his sister with a toy gun. And you know, how many of you guys had toy guns? Girls and boys, right? How many of your grandchildren have toy guns now? If that had happened to a white 12-year-old boy, let me guarantee you, someone would have been held accountable. And more than that, we would have realized the depth of the problem that we have. Our police officers, they lay their lives on the line every day. We have to appreciate that. But like anyone else, doctors, lawyers, ministers, they can make mistakes. And we have to hold everyone accountable. Because if we don't, more violence takes place. So the last thing that I want to say is Ella Baker is one of the civil rights activists who worked for 50 years behind the scenes, and I know some of y'all know who that is. Sweet Honey in the Rock have a beautiful song called Ella's Song, written by the founder of that group, Bernice Johnson Reagan. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Until the killing of black men, black mothers' sons, is as important as the killing of white mothers' sons. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. And the women who started the Black Lives Matter movement, which can also be called a movement for black lives, it's a grassroots, participatory, democratic movement. And there's lots of different kind of aspects to it. And it's addressing the criminal justice system, but it's also looking at African American communities and how too many of our citizens are not given equal protection under the law or equal access to their rights as citizens when it comes to education and housing and employment. So a lot of people are nervous about being called racist, but I think it's more helpful to look at racism as a system and look at policies. And we have made a lot of success with the laws, but we can tell that 50 years after the voting rights legislation passed, the African American community as a whole has not been able to get out from under the new kinds of control that the power structure has put into place and is keeping in place. So, thank you, you guys, for being so brave, really. They inspire me.